Hey everybody, Chris here from It's Mead Made, and so my email inbox is always flooded with requests for tips and tricks, and especially when it comes to Bambu Studio. So that's what today's video is all about. Some of these tips and tricks you've probably never even heard of. These tips will help you streamline and speed up your workflow to save you time and maybe just make your life a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and get into it. This first tip is when you're struggling to find that one setting. I mean, you know the name of it, but you just have no idea where it is. Let me show you how to skip the endless digging around and get straight to it. Alright, so for all of these little tips and tricks, I'm going to be using this little Bulbasaur model I found on Maker World. So let's go ahead and get into the first tip. Now, this one is really handy for those of you that know the setting that you're needing to get to, but maybe you forget where it's at. Now, there is a great little search engine right here, and it will bring up all of the presets in Bambu Studio. So you can scroll through this and just find whichever one you're looking for. So if I am looking for, let's say, the line width for my sparse infill, I can click on it, and it'll take me directly to the sparse infill. And you saw it flashing right there for us. Now, I can change that setting right now easily. And the other thing is if you just want to start typing, so if I say pattern, and I can easily find my sparse infill pattern, and right here. So then this is where I could go to change my sparse infill. This isn't one of those crazy tips, but this is something that will help you along the way, especially when you start to get used to more and more of these features. And you might know the name, like I said, but there's a lot here, and it will save you time instead of having to go through every single panel and search for it. So have you ever needed to compare multiple 3D models with different settings side by side? This feature will let you see each model on your build plate with its own unique settings, making comparisons super easy. Now, if you're printing multiple models on a build plate and you want to see the settings of these specific models or change the settings of a specific model, there is a great way to be able to do that side by side. Now, I will say you can click on Objects, then click on the object that you're wanting to change the settings for and go right here and change it. Then go and click on the other one and change that as well on all of the different settings tabs. But there's a way I like to do this without going into the object settings. If you come over here to the advanced toggle, just to the right of that, there's this little box, and that is View All Objects Settings. So you click that, and you're going to get this nice little dialog box, and it's going to pop up for you. And this is going to show you all of the things that you can 3D print on all of the build plates. So if we go just column by column, we can see if it's printable, so we can actually turn them off if we wanted to so they don't print. And you can see that that won't actually print, it'll only print this one. Then it'll tell me which build plate the model is on. So this one and this one are both on build plate 2. That means it's these two. And if you click on this, you can easily see which is which because it'll have a little box around the model itself. Now, this is what I really like about it. You can click on that and then double click and then change it to whatever name you want. So I can say this is model 1 and this is model 2. So now I can differentiate these a lot easier. Now, you can go into your filament, and I could change the color I wanted to, and you just click on that, and it'll give a drop down of all of the different filaments we have. So this could be red, but we're going to change that back to blue. And then we can go to our layer height, our wall loops, infill density, our supports. If we have any, we can check them or not check them, and brim and outer wall speed. Now, this is the cool thing. When you click on this, it will give you all of the settings that you can change. So if I wanted to, say on this model 2, change my layer height to a 0.16, I can do that. So now this will print at a 0.16 and this will print at a 0.2 layer height. And for my infill density, let's say that this is at 10, But this other one, I actually want it to be at 5. So I can make that at a 5 infill density. And if we look over here, we can see the infill density is at 5. And let's say that for this, I want to use a gyroid infill as well. And you can just change that on all of these. And I like it just because I can see them side by side, especially when I'm trying to have different quality of models on the same plate. So if we close this, and let's just go ahead and slice this so I can show you what we just did. So if I scroll this down, we can see that this has got a gyroid infill, and this has the grid. And also, if we let this go all the way up, we can see that this has a finer layer height than this one. This was the 0.2, and this is the 0.16. So this is just one way to see all of your settings side by side on your models and even your build plates. These next few tips are for those of you who regularly print multiple parts on a single build plate. Let me show you how to move around pieces quickly and with precision. So when you have a lot of parts and pieces on your build plate, sometimes when it comes to organization and moving things around, it can get a little bit cumbersome, especially when you're trying to be very organized. Because you can just click on the model and move it around, but when you're trying to line things up perfectly, it can sometimes be a little bit of a pain. Now, the one thing you can do to be able to select multiple things at once is if you hold your control button, then click on multiple objects, it will select all of them at once, so then you can move them in groups. Another handy tip is if you hold Shift and then left click and drag, it will create a box. And anything inside that box is going to be selected. So all you have to do is just let go, and it will automatically select everything in that box. So then we have all of these selected. So here's something even better. If you hold Shift and then hold Control at the same time, then left click and drag over another area, it will select those to the group as well. So then you can move multiple pieces and parts throughout your entire build plate, which is a lot faster than holding Control and then clicking all of the different pieces and parts that you wanted to select. So you can do it so much faster just by holding Shift, click and drag, and then adding Control to that Shift as well, and click and drag. Then you can select multiple pieces all at once. And just to keep adding on to this, another thing you can do is when you have certain things selected, you can move them incrementally. So if I use my arrow keys, I will just hit right and it will move it to the right. Now, it is whichever arrow key you hit, so up, down, left, and right. You can see how it moves it around. So you could easily space out all of your models to be able to make them nice and even. So you can see with just a few clicks, we have been able to move all of these and separate them really fast. And they're all evenly spaced. Now, here's an even better thing that you can do. So if you have something that you want to move in a little closer, because if you notice, it moves it every 10 millimeters. And that's just too much of a movement. If I hold Shift and move up, it's going to move it just by 1 millimeter at a time. So then I can get these parts really close together to be able to print as much as I can on my build plate. So I can move this over and then just use my arrow keys while holding Shift to be able to get it right where I want. So up and down, left and right is moved by 10 millimeters, and holding Shift up and down, left and right will move it by 1 millimeter. This next tip is for anyone using an AMS that's doing multicolor printing. Let me show you how to speed up your workflow. Now, this is something I use a lot to be able to switch the color of the filament for the model I'm using. Now, I can right-click on my model and come down here to change filament and then select the color that I want. So let's say it's green. And then it will change the entire model to green. And you can also go to your paint bucket tool and then just start using the paint bucket to fill in the entire model to one color as well. But if you notice over here on the left side of your sidebar, you can see all of the different filaments you have, and there's numbers associated with them. And if you just go to your keyboard and hit that number, it will automatically switch to that filament. So all you have to do is click your model and then come over here and see this number 4 for the red and click 4. And it will automatically switch it for you. So if I hit 5, if I hit 1, it will automatically change it to that specific color. Now, the biggest benefit of this is when you are starting to paint your 3D prints, you really want the base color to be whatever is using the most filament. So for this would be number 1, because I want to get all of his skin done first, and then I can paint the rest of the objects. So that's just a handy tip, and I've got an even better tip using this exact method in a future tip. So hang tight, we're going to get to that too. So do you have multiple build plates like I do? Each one has its strengths and its weaknesses, especially dependent on the filaments. And for certain projects, especially those multi-print ones, I switch between them a lot. And I want to show you how I manage them seamlessly in a single project. Now, I'm sure you're aware when you are 3D printing, certain build plates are great for certain types of filaments and even different types of prints. And you always have to change whichever build plate you're actually printing on. And you can see you can change them right here. So let's say that I want to change this to a cool plate super tack, because this is one of my new plates that I love to print on. And it's going to work great for this one. But let's say I'm printing something else over here on this build plate with a different model. So let's ignore that it's the same. But I don't want to use the super tack for this. I want to change this to my PEI textured plate. So all you have to do to change the settings of your individual plate is come over here to the plate settings icon. And that's this little icon right here on the right. So click that and you'll get a dialog box, and immediately at the top you're going to see plate type. And it's going to say same as global plate type. And that's what this is up here, is the plate type that is global. So every time I add a build plate, it's going to add a cool plate super tack. But we're going to change this to a textured PEI plate, because this is the one I want to use for this specific print. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now you can see it automatically changed the textured PEI plate. And if we come over here, we can see it's the cool plate. So this is just a really great way to be able to change the settings per plate and know that the settings are going to be accurate for the plate you're using. So do you work on a small screen or laptop and you just wish you had more workspace when you're arranging your models or even painting your 3D models? So let me show you something I use a lot to make this a lot easier. So this tip is honestly a super easy one, but it's probably one of the ones that I use the most, especially when I'm using any type of painting tool. Because when I'm using my laptop, I have a limited amount of screen space. And when I'm really zoomed in to a model and there's a lot of detail and I need to see everything, I want as much screen real estate as I can get. So if I switch into my painting tool, and we can see here that I'm zoomed in and I just need to see more because I want to paint as much as I can in one view. So all you have to do is hold Shift and then hit Tab, and that will automatically hide the sidebar to where you have a lot more screen real estate to zoom in and see all of your model, so where you can get in there and start painting everything you need. And this works for any type of painting, like I said, whether it's painting on supports or painting seams or just painting when it comes to multicolor prints. And when you're done, all you have to do is hit Shift Tab again, and the sidebar will come back out. Painting your 3D prints can be a hassle sometimes, but if you want to speed up your process, these next tips are game changers. They'll help you work faster and take your painting skills to that next level. So first, let's go ahead and click on our model and let's go into the paint view, and we are ready to paint. And let's also use our last tip and hit Shift Tab, and now we have a lot more real estate to be able to paint our model. Now, this tip is specifically focused on our circle tool and our sphere tool. So we're going to use the sphere tool because that's kind of my favorite one over the circle tool. and we're going to paint our bulb. Now, this is the one thing that I'm going to show you. When we were talking about switching between filaments, it also works here. So I need green, so all I'm going to do is hit 6. So when we're painting, we can easily switch between our filament colors and paint whatever we need to just by hitting the numbers on our keypad. So we can go through here and start painting really quickly. Now, just that alone can help speed up your workflow, but we're going to keep going. If we hit 6, we can get our green. But I need to paint this whole thing, and I want to increase the size of my brush. Now, I can come up here and just increase the size like this and just start painting. But if I don't want to keep coming up here and clicking on things, and I just want to keep painting, all I have to do is hold Control and my mouse wheel. I'm just going to start scrolling, and it will automatically start creating a bigger sphere for me to paint this bulb. And you can see how I can paint it so much faster. Now, if I zoom in here and I'm like, too big, now I just have to hit Control and hold it and then scroll down, and it's going to make it a lot smaller. So I can get into some of these cracks and maybe get really close to the edges to get some of those fine details. And I just got to keep holding Control, scroll, let go of Control, and then my paintbrush size is a different size. And this also is the same when it comes to the circle tool. So I've got a big one, I've got even bigger, so I can just get all of this taken care of. Then I can scroll down while holding Control, and it will get smaller, and I can start painting this quicker. And I can just go in here, hold my middle mouse button to move up, and start really scrolling down and just getting really in there on this model to get as close to these cracks as I can to get a perfect edge. And if I wanted to, I can hit number 2 and switch to this and start dealing with this little, spot right here. And I can paint that really nicely. And let's say I want to scroll up a little bit to be able to get the bigger area, and then scroll down to be able to get right on the edge of this. So just doing this can really increase your workflow. Now, another thing that can help you is if you are used to using your section view, all you have to do is hold Alt and then start scrolling, and that will start sliding through your section view. So this is really beneficial for those tough to get areas. So if I need to get in there to get that tongue, I can hit 5, and now I want to switch over to my sphere, and I can go in there and really get the back of this tongue and get it really nice. So I will hold Control, I will get this bigger and start painting, then hold Alt, and I can keep moving back farther, then move around so I can really see what I need to paint here. And just get in there and paint that. So using section view can be very beneficial when you hold Alt and just start scrolling to get into some of those troublesome areas. I use this a lot in the bend of arms and things like that to make sure that I can get in those areas really well. And you can see that I'm just doing great, because if I would be trying to paint that right now, you can see it is a little bit difficult to try to get into some of those back areas. But using section view, I don't have to worry about that, and I can zoom in and really get in there and get all of those areas. So if we zoom out here, we can see this beautifully painted Bulbasaur. Now, the other thing I want to show you is in the height range when painting. Now, for this kind of model, height range is something I wouldn't use, but if you're dealing with a sign or anything flat, that's where this tool really shines. And what that does is it will paint the entire layer. So we can see that this entire layer is going to be painted pink, anywhere in between these two white lines. But if I hold Control and use my mouse wheel, I can increase and decrease the size of what my height range actually is. So just holding Control, using your mouse wheel, and you can make it as big as it'll go, or you can make it as small as it can go. So this is a very handy tool in certain situations, but it is a really nice thing to use. So I'm just going to erase all of my painting and jump out of this. So the great thing about this tip is it's not just for painting. You can also use it for anything with a brush tool. So if I have seams and I want to paint the seam in the back and I really want it to kind of stay back here, I can, and I can paint this seam right here. But let's say, okay, with the seams, it honestly could be anywhere back here, and I make my brush bigger, and then I kind of go like that, and now that's where the seam is going to be, anywhere in the brush area. So that is really beneficial. And even if we switch over to painting supports, like I know all of the red areas I definitely need to support if I'm using manual supports, and I can increase the size by holding control in my mouse wheel and then just say, okay, let's just support this whole area, and let's support this whole area under his chin. But then if I get really in there and I see, okay, his teeth, let's scroll that down. And I'm only going to get the caps of his teeth and then just the edge of his lip. So I don't have to worry about anything else. But that is really nice to be able to just change the settings on the fly. But this also works for section view too, so if I hold Alt, I can just scroll and then it will start cutting it away so I can see in the areas that I really need to support, and I can paint those in as well. So I gotta know, which one of these tips did you find most helpful? Let me know in the comments, and also let me know if you'd like to just see more of these tips and tricks videos. And as always, thanks for watching. I wish you a great day, and if you want to learn more about Bambu Studio, check out this playlist right here.